The Awakening. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the observation window of the stellar archives, her reflection ghosting against the backdrop of swirling nebula beyond. In her hands, she held a data crystal so ancient its edges had begun to deteriorate. For 3 decades, she had searched for proof of the legends, and now, finally, she had found it. "Captain, the council is ready for your presentation," her eye assistant, Era, announced quietly. Sarah nodded, squaring her shoulders. The Galactic Council chamber was imposing by design, its circular architecture drawing all eyes to the center where she now stood. 12 representatives of humanity's most powerful colonies watched her with varying degrees of skepticism. "Distinguished council members," she began, her voice steady, 30 years ago, we detected an anomalous energy signature from the untouched void. Today, I can prove it wasn't just another quantum fluctuation. It was a prisoner stirring in its cell." The chamber's holographic displays came to life, showing ancient star charts and energy readings. In the pre-colonial era, our ancestors discovered references to a being of immense power. They called it the Starweaver, though in most texts, it's simply referred to as the Dragon. Counselor Wei leaned forward, his cybernetic eyes wearing as they focused. "Captain Chen, we're familiar with your persistence regarding these legends, but surely you're not suggesting—" "I'm not suggesting anything, Counselor. I'm presenting evidence." Sarah activated the data crystal. Above them, a 3-dimensional map materialized, showing a structure hidden in the void between stars. This facility predates human spaceflight by at least 10,000 years. It was built by the precursors, the same civilization that left the quantum gates we still use today. The chamber erupted in whispers. The precursors were no myth. Their technological remnants had bootstrapped humanity's expansion into space, but no one had ever found one of their structures intact. "The energy signature matches exactly what we'd expect from their containment technology," Sarah continued. "But here's what's truly remarkable. It's still active. Something in there is still alive." Counselor Patel raised her hand, silencing the murmurs. "And you believe this something is your dragon?" "The facility's purpose is clear from the precursor records we've decoded. They built it to hold a being that could manipulate the fundamental forces of spacetime itself. A cosmic entity that took the form of what our ancestors could only describe as a dragon." Sarah paused, letting the implications sink in. 3 months ago, the energy readings changed. After what we estimate to be 12 centuries of dormancy, the prisoner is awakening. "If what you're saying is true," Counselor Wei said slowly, "why would we want to go anywhere near this facility? If the precursors thought this being dangerous enough to imprison." "Because it's failing." Sarah projected new data streams. "The containment systems were built to last millennia, but nothing lasts forever. We have 2 choices. We can wait for an inevitable catastrophic failure, or we can take control of the situation." The council chamber fell silent. Sarah knew she had them, not through the legends or the mystery, but through fear. Humanity had clawed its way to the stars, and it wouldn't risk losing everything to an ancient prisoner breaking free. "What exactly are you proposing, Captain?" Counselor Patel asked. "Give me a ship and a specialized team. Let me establish contact." The precursors clearly communicated with this being. They had to imprison it, which means we can too. "And if it's hostile?" Sarah's expression hardened. "Then we'll have a front-row seat to deal with the threat, instead of waiting helplessly for it to break free." The council deliberated for hours, but Sarah knew she had won the moment she finished her presentation. Humanity had never been good at leaving mysteries unexplored, especially ones that might destroy them. 2 weeks later, Sarah stood on the bridge of the research vessel Prometheus, watching her hand-picked crew prepare for their journey. Dr. Kai Patel, xenolinguistics expert and daughter of the council member who had ultimately championed their mission. Security Chief Carmen Rodriguez, whose encounter with a quantum anomaly had left her partially out of phase with normal spacetime. potentially useful when dealing with a being that could manipulate such forces, and Dr. Marcus Webb, whose work on precursor technology had revolutionized their understanding of quantum engineering. As the Prometheus's engines hummed to life, Sarah touched the ancient symbol she wore around her neck. A dragon eating its own tail, found in the ruins where she'd first discovered references to the prisoner. Whatever waited for them in that ancient facility, she knew humanity's understanding of their place in the cosmos was about to change forever. "All systems are go," Captain Araya announced. "Course laid in for the Ophiuchus void." Sarah took her command chair, her voice clear and confident. "Take us out, nice and easy. We've got a date with a dragon." The Prometheus slipped its moorings and accelerated into the darkness between stars, carrying its crew toward an encounter 12 centuries in the making. Behind them, Earth's orbital rings glittered like a farewell beacon, soon swallowed by the vastness of space. What none of them knew was that deep in the void, ancient eyes had already begun tracking their approach, and plans set in motion before humans had learned to make fire were finally coming to fruition. Breaking the silence, the Prometheus dropped out of quantum space with a ripple of displaced energy, its sensors immediately scanning the vast emptiness ahead. But the Ophiuchus void wasn't empty anymore. Before them loomed a structure that defied conventional physics, a geometric impossibility of intersecting planes and angles that seemed to fold in on themselves. "That's not what I expected," Dr. Marcus Webb muttered, his hands flying over the sensor controls. "The energy readings are off the charts. It's like the whole thing exists in multiple dimensional states simultaneously." Sarah studied the holographic display, noting how her eyes seemed to slide off certain parts of the structure, as if her brain refused to process what it was seeing. "Carmen, what do you see with your unique perspective?" Security Chief Rodriguez stepped forward, her form flickering slightly as her quantum-shifted body interacted with the facility's energy field. "It's singing, Captain. The whole structure is resonating with some kind of harmonic frequency, and there's something at its heart, something alive." "Life sign readings?" Sarah asked, turning to Dr. Kaipatel. The xenolinguist shook her head, her dark eyes reflecting the strange geometries before them. "Nothing our systems recognize as life, but there's definitely a pattern to the energy fluctuations. If it's communication, it's unlike anything in our databases." Sarah touched the dragon symbol at her neck, a habit she'd developed over years of research. "Araya, begin mapping the safe approach vector. Let's not rush into." The ship shuddered, caught in an invisible grip. Warning lights flashed across every console. "We're being pulled in," Marcus shouted, his fingers dancing across the controls. "The engines aren't responding." "Don't fight it," Carmen said suddenly, her voice taking on an odd resonance. "The harmonics, they're creating a safe path. If we resist, we'll tear ourselves apart." Sarah made a split-second decision. Cut engines. Let it guide us in. The Prometheus glided through space like a leaf on a stream, following a precise trajectory through the facility's impossible geometry. As they drew closer, details became clearer, or perhaps more incomprehensible. The structure's surface wasn't solid but seemed to shift between states of matter, energy patterns flowing through it like blood through veins. They passed through what appeared to be a membrane of pure energy, their shields harmonizing with it instead of fighting it. Beyond lay a vast docking chamber that couldn't have physically fit within the structure they'd observed from outside. "Dimensional engineering," Marcus breathed, his scientific detachment giving way to wonder. The precursors weren't just advanced. They were playing with the fabric of reality itself. The ship settled into a cradle of light, held steady by forces their instruments couldn't properly measure. Environmental readings appeared on their screens, showing a breathable atmosphere beyond the hull. "Well," Sarah said, standing from her command chair, "looks like we're expected. Kai, any progress on those energy patterns?" The xenolinguist was bent over her console, her expression intense. "They're becoming clearer now that we're closer. It's like they're adapting to be more comprehensible to our systems. Whatever's generating them is intelligent, and it's learning about us in real time. Captain, Araya's calm voice cut in. I've detected what appears to be a path illuminated through the facility. The energy signatures suggest it's been specifically calibrated to be safe for human biology. Sarah looked at her team. They had trained for every scenario they could imagine. But this, being invited in by an ancient cosmic entity, hadn't been in any of their protocols. Suit up, she ordered. Full environmental gear, but we'll keep our helmets unsealed unless readings change. Carmen, I want you on point. Your quantum shift might give us early warning of any threats. Marcus, bring every sensor package you can carry. Kai, focus on those energy patterns. If this thing's trying to talk to us, I want to be ready to talk back. As they prepared to disembark, Sarah received a private message from Araya on her neural link. Captain, I feel I should inform you that the facility's energy patterns share certain similarities with quantum encryption algorithms I've detected in your dragon pendant. Sarah froze. She'd found the pendant in the ruins where she'd first discovered references to the prisoner, but she'd never been able to decrypt its data crystal core. Why didn't you mention this before? The similarities only became apparent when we entered the facility's influence. Captain, I believe the pendant was meant to be a key. Sarah looked at the ancient symbol with new eyes. For 30 years, she'd thought it was just a symbol, a representation of the legends she'd been chasing. But if it was actually precursor technology, designed to interact with this facility, keep that information between us for now, she subvocalized to Araya. But start analyzing every interaction between the pendant and the facility systems. The airlock cycled open, revealing a corridor that seemed to be composed of solid light. As Sarah led her team out of the ship, she couldn't shake the feeling that every step had been orchestrated, planned centuries before her birth. They weren't just walking into a prison. They were walking into a trap that had taken over a millennium to spring. But as the corridor had pulsed with welcoming light, Sarah realized she didn't care. She had spent her life preparing for this moment, and if it was a trap, she was going to spring it on her terms. Forward, she commanded, and her team moved out, their footsteps echoing in a space that had waited 12 centuries for human voices. Ahead, the path led deeper into the impossible geometry of the facility, toward whatever entity had been patient enough to wait more than a millennium for this exact moment. The mind behind the scales. The deeper they ventured into the facility, the more Sarah felt reality beginning to fray around the edges. The corridors seemed to breathe, walls rippling with patterns that told stories in a language of pure energy. Carmen walked ahead, her quantum-shifted form occasionally merging with the facility's strange geometries before pulling back into normal space. The harmonics are getting stronger, Carmen reported, her voice echoing oddly. It's like the whole place is singing the same note, getting ready for a chord change. Dr. Webb's sensor pack hummed continuously, struggling to process the readings it was receiving. These energy patterns, they're not just communication, they're restructuring the space around us. Every step we take is technically impossible by our understanding of physics. Kai, Sarah called to her xenolinguist. Any progress on decoding the patterns? Yes and no, Kai replied, her eyes fixed on her handheld analyzer. They're becoming more ordered, more deliberate. It's like someone learning how to speak by watching your lips move, getting closer to forming words with each attempt. The pendant at Sarah's neck grew warmer with each step, its crystal core pulsing in sync with the facility's rhythms. She hadn't told her team about Araya's discovery of its true nature, but she could feel it responding to their surroundings, like a key vibrating near its lock. They entered a vast chamber that seemed to exist in multiple places at once. Looking up showed them looking down, and the walls curved in ways that suggested they were simultaneously inside and outside a sphere. At its center, suspended in a column of pure light, was something that their minds struggled to process. It appeared at first glance to be a dragon, as the legends described. Scales like starlight, wings that could eclipse suns, But as they watched, its form shifted, revealing its true nature. It wasn't merely a dragon. It was as if the concept of dragon was the closest their minds could come to understanding what they were seeing. Parts of it existed in dimensions they couldn't perceive, leaving their brains to fill in the gaps with something comprehensible. "Beautiful," Kai whispered, her analyzer forgotten in her hands. "It's not using energy to communicate. It is energy, trying to communicate by taking a form we can understand." The being's attention focused on them, and Sarah felt the weight of an intelligence vast enough to comprehend the space between galaxies. The pendant at her neck blazed with sudden heat. "You wear their key," a voice echoed in their minds, each person hearing it in a way they could best understand. For Sarah, it was like remembering words she'd known since birth, but had somehow forgotten. "But you are not them. You are younger, briefer, yet you came." Sarah stepped forward, her voice steadied, despite the cosmic presence pressing against her consciousness. "We found records of this facility, of you. I'd spent my life trying to understand why you were imprisoned here." A sound like stellar wind through ancient ruins swept through their minds, something between amusement and sorrow. Imprisoned? Is a seed imprisoned by its shell? Is a thought imprisoned by the mind that shapes it? "You're saying you're here voluntarily?" Marcus asked, his scientific curiosity overcoming his awe. "Choice, necessity, purpose. Your languages are too linear to express the truth of it." The dragon shape rippled, stars wheeling through its form. "The ones you call precursors did not build this place to contain me. They built it with me, to contain something far more dangerous." "What could be more dangerous than a being that can reshape reality?" Carmen asked, her quantum-shifted perception allowing her to see more of the entity's true form than the others. "Understanding," the entity replied. "Knowledge that a species must grow into, lest it destroy itself. Your kind stands at a precipice, as all young races do. You have learned to break matter and rebuild it, to fold space and pierce the veils between worlds. But you have not yet learned why you should, or should not." Sarah's hand went to the pendant. "And this? What is its purpose?" "A test, a key, a choice. The ones who came before left keys scattered across the cosmos, waiting for those who would seek knowledge rather than power. You found one, young seeker. You followed its call. But now comes the true test." The chamber shifted, reality spreading thin around them like a soap bubble about to burst. Images flooded their minds, worlds burning as civilizations wielded powers they weren't ready to control, species ascending to pure energy only to fade into entropy, galaxies reshaped by the dreams of beings who had forgotten why restraint mattered. "I am not a prisoner," the entity continued. "I am a guardian, a teacher. The ones you call precursors were my students, until they learned all they could and moved beyond the conflicts that plague younger races. They left this place not as a prison, but as a school. And now you have enrolled." The energy readings changing, Sarah realized. "You were waking up because you sensed we were ready. Ready to learn, or ready to destroy yourselves. That choice was always yours to make. The key you wear is not to free me. It is to free yourselves from the limitations of ignorance. If you dare." Sarah looked at her team, seeing the weight of comprehension in their eyes. They had come expecting to find a prisoner, perhaps a weapon. Instead, they had found a crossroads, one that every spacefaring civilization must eventually encounter. "What exactly are you offering?" she asked, though part of her already knew the answer. "Understanding. Truth. The knowledge your species will need to survive its next great test. But knowledge has a price. Are you prepared to pay it?" The pendant pulsed once, hard enough to feel like a heartbeat. Sarah realized that every step of her life, every clue she'd followed, every legend she'd chased, had led to this moment of choice. And suddenly, she understood why the precursors had encoded their messages in symbols of dragons. Beings of power who could choose to destroy or to guide, to hoard knowledge or to share it. "What's the price?" she asked, her voice firm. The entity's form shifted again, and for a moment they saw it as it truly was. A nexus of possibilities, a living library of cosmic knowledge, a being that had watched civilizations rise and fall like waves on an infinite shore. Everything you think you know, everything you believe to be true. Are you ready to unlearn in order to learn? Price of freedom. The moment of choice was shattered by Aria's urgent message cutting through their neural links. Captain, multiple quantum signatures detected. Ships dropping out of FTL. Galactic Council configurations. Sarah's tactical training kicked in immediately. How many? 3 dreadnoughts, Captain. Energy signatures suggest weapons charging. They're not responding to hails. The dragon entity's form rippled with something that might have been concern. It seems some among your kind have already made their choice. Counselor Wei, Sarah breathed, understanding clicking into place. He never wanted us to make contact. He wanted to know where to aim the weapons. The chamber's walls became transparent, showing them the massive warships taking position around the facility. Their weapon ports glowed with the telltale blue fire of quantum disruptors, designed to tear apart the fabric of space-time itself. Those are planet-killer-class weapons, Marcus said, his voice tight. They're not here to capture anything. They're here to erase it. Yes, the entity agreed. Fear leads to such decisions, the desire to destroy what cannot be controlled. How many civilizations have I watched fall to this same impulse? Captain, Carmen called, her quantum-shifted form flickering more rapidly now. The harmonics are changing. The facility's responding to the threat. Sarah's mind raced. The pendant burned against her skin, and she could feel possibilities branching out before her like streams of probability. Can you protect yourself? The facility. I can, but the energy release would devastate this sector of space. Your ships would be destroyed. Nearby systems would burn. Then don't. Sarah's voice cut through the chamber with sudden authority. If you're really here to teach, then teach them. Show them why they shouldn't fear you. The entity's attention focused on her with an intensity that made reality quiver. You would risk everything on the chance to change their minds. That's what teachers do, Sarah replied. They believe in the possibility of understanding, even in the face of fear. A new voice cut through their neural links. Counselor Wei himself. Captain Chen, you have 5 minutes to evacuate your team. This facility and everything in it will be eliminated. This is not a negotiation. Sarah touched the pendant, feeling its warmth pulse in sync with her heartbeat. Kai, can you broadcast on all frequencies? The xenolinguist nodded, fingers flying over her comm unit. Ready when you are. Sarah straightened her shoulders, facing the transparent walls and the warships beyond. This is Captain Sarah Chen to all council vessels. I know you're afraid. I know you see something you don't understand and your first instinct is to destroy it. But look around you. Look at this facility, at the being you're trying to kill. They could have destroyed us 1,000 times over. Instead, they waited. They taught. They believed we could be more than our fears. She took a breath, feeling the weight of centuries pressing down on this moment. This isn't a prison. It's a library, a school built by those who came before us, waiting for us to be ready to learn. And yes, knowledge can be dangerous. Yes, understanding changes everything. But destroying what we fear doesn't make us safer. It makes us ignorant. The pendant pulsed, and Sarah felt knowledge flowing into her mind. Pure, crystalline understanding of how the facility worked, of what the entity truly was. The precursors hadn't left them a weapon or a prisoner. They'd left them a choice. I'm going to prove it to you, she continued. Watch carefully. She lifted the pendant from her neck, understanding now why she'd been chosen to find it, why it had called to her across decades. The crystal at its heart wasn't just a key. It was a demonstration. You understand the price? The entity asked in her mind alone. I do, Sarah replied aloud. Some lessons have to be lived to be understood. She pressed the crystal into the light that surrounded the dragon entity, and reality shifted. The pendant dissolved, its energy flowing into her body like starfire. Sarah gasped as knowledge older than human civilization poured into her mind, not just facts and figures, but understanding that rewrote her conception of existence itself. Her body began to glow, patterns of light racing across her skin like circuits made of starlight. She turned to her team, seeing the awe in their faces, then looked out at the warships still poised to attack. "Let me show you what they were trying to teach us," she said, her voice resonating with new harmonics. "Let me show you why understanding is better than fear." She raised her hands, and the space between the facility and the warships came alive with patterns of pure energy, not weapons, but equations written in light, formulae that explained the very forces the warships were trying to harness to destroy them. "This is what the precursors learned." Sarah's voice echoed across space itself. "Not how to break reality, but how to understand it. Not how to destroy, but how to transform. The dragon isn't a prisoner or a weapon. It's a teacher. And now so am I." The warship's weapons powered down as their crews stared in wonder at the display of cosmic knowledge written across the void. Sarah felt her consciousness expanding, touching minds across the fleet, sharing not just information but understanding, the deep vital knowledge that the precursors had entrusted to their guardian. The first lesson, the dragon entity broadcast to them all, is always the same. Knowledge without wisdom destroys. Wisdom without knowledge stagnates. Only together can they light the path forward. Sarah turned to her team, her form now suffused with the same shifting energy as the entities. "Are you ready to learn?" Legacy of Stars. In the days that followed, the Ophiuchus Void became a beacon for humanity's transformation. The facility, once thought to be a prison, revealed itself as humanity's first true university of cosmic knowledge. Sarah, now existing in a state between human and energy being, found herself bridging two worlds, the physical realm of her birth and the higher dimensions she now perceived. "The changes are stable," Dr. Webb reported, his sensors struggling to make sense of Sarah's new form. She shifted between states like light through a prism, sometimes solid, sometimes pure energy, always maintaining the core of who she was. "It's like watching evolution happen in real time." "Not evolution," Kai corrected, her xenolinguistics equipment now recording patterns that existed beyond normal spacetime. "Emergence. We're watching humanity's next step, but it's not biological. It's conscious." The dragon entity, no longer needing to maintain its simplified form, had spread throughout the facility like a constellation given purpose. "You begin to understand now," it communicated, "why the precursors left us here, why they waited so long. The key was never about unlocking doors, it was about unlocking potential." Sarah, floating in a corona of stellar fire, watched as ships from across human space arrived at the facility. The Council, after witnessing her transformation, had been forced to acknowledge the truth. Humanity had been offered membership in a community far older and vaster than they had imagined. "But not everyone will be ready," Carmen observed, her quantum-shifted form now resonating harmoniously with the facility's energies. "Not everyone will want to change." "They don't have to," Sarah replied, her voice carrying harmonics that made reality sing. "That's the real lesson, isn't it? Change can't be forced. Understanding has to be chosen." The entity's presence rippled with approval. "Now you truly begin to teach." In the weeks that followed, Sarah and her team established the first protocols for what would become known as the Stellar Academy. The facility's impossible geometries housed laboratories where scientists could study the fundamental forces of reality, meditation chambers where consciousness could be expanded safely, and libraries containing knowledge that would take centuries to fully comprehend. But it wasn't just about accumulating knowledge. The dragon entity, working through Sarah, taught them the wisdom the precursors had learned, how to advance without destroying themselves, how to grow without losing their humanity, how to reach for the stars without burning them out. "We're receiving transmissions from other sectors," Kai announced one day, her eyes wide with wonder. "Similar facilities are activating across the galaxy. More keys are being found." "Of course they are," Sarah said, understanding flowing through her transformed consciousness. We weren't meant to be alone in this. The precursors seeded the galaxy with these schools, waiting for species to find them when they were ready. And now you become part of the legacy, the entity shared. Not just students, but teachers for those who will follow. The Council, once intent on destruction, had been transformed by understanding. Counselor Wei himself had become one of the strongest advocates for the Stellar Academy. His fear turned to purpose once he comprehended the true nature of what they had discovered. Sarah stood at the heart of the facility, her form blazing with stellar fire as she addressed the latest group of students, scientists, philosophers, explorers, all chosen not for their knowledge but for their willingness to learn. The dragons in our legends, she told them, were never meant to be conquered or destroyed. They were symbols of wisdom, of power tempered by understanding. The precursors left us this legacy not because we were special, but because we had the potential to choose wisdom over fear, growth over stagnation. She raised her hand, and the facility's walls became transparent, showing them the vast cosmos beyond. This is your inheritance, not just knowledge, but the wisdom to use it well. The key isn't to become all-powerful, it's to understand why power alone is never enough. The dragon entity's presence surrounded them, its vast consciousness touching each mind gently, offering not demands but possibilities. The next chapter begins, it shared, not with fire and death, but with understanding and life. Around them, the facility pulsed with potential, its energies reaching out across space and time. Other keys were being found, other facilities awakening. Humanity stood at the threshold of a new age, not conquering the cosmos, but becoming part of its grand design. Sarah felt the changes rippling through reality as more humans chose to transform, to learn, to understand. The prison that never was had become a cradle for humanity's next great journey. And somewhere, in dimensions beyond normal space, she sensed the precursor's satisfaction as their long plan came to fruition. The dragon was never in a cell, she told her students, her form shimmering with starlight. We were, and now, at last, we're ready to break free, not through force, but through understanding. The facility's light pulsed in harmony with her words, and across the galaxy, other lights began to answer. The age of fear was ending. The age of wisdom had begun. And so, the dragon entity shared, the real story begins.